Okay, hi everybody. Um, Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the stream. I feel like every time I do this, I have really bad posture, and that's probably why my back hurts so much because I'm just sitting in like a random dining chair, but I'm like hunched over like a little goblin. Because I'm actually using like a sideways bookshelf as a desk because I don't have a lot of real furniture. I actually got a laptop stand. I mean, I have one, but I use it as like for eating. We'll try it. We'll try a different layout next time. But anyway, welcome to the stream. My name is Sonia. I am a DJ, artist, musician, writer, jack of all trades in creative industries. And this is my bi weekly talk show where I talk to musicians and artists and DJs and other music industry adjacent people about what's on their playlist, what they're listening to. This one is a very special episode because it is the penultimate, which is a word I learned from reading the series of unfortunate events in high school, if you recall. And the second last book was called like The Penultimate Peril. Okay, and the first few pages of the book were spent on explaining the word penultimate to the readers, who were supposed to be like 11, but I was like 15 because the series extended for a long time. Okay, like I had started it when I was a child and then it continued into adulthood, so like I'm not gonna just stop, right? I had to carry on. But anyway, this week's guest, or this bi-weekly guest, is a musician who I really like. I've used his songs in a lot of my past mixes, specifically the ones that I do for study sessions for Empty Plate Radio, which has been on hiatus for the last couple months. I believe they're coming back in January after restructuring the radio station. So let me introduce, and then we'll get started on the conversation. Thank you, as always, On Air for having me, and for everyone here for tuning in. So SixMissing is my guest today, and he is the ambient, meditative, and cinematic endeavor of award-winning sound designer, mixer, and composer TJ Dumpster. TJ Dumpster centers his texture to lush and emotional sonic landscapes that allow the listener to drift away or close their eyes and exist within the theater of the mind. These I'm so sorry. This email has cut itself off. Here we go. These cinematic soundscapes lend themselves to film, TV, and activities in which words fail to capture meaning. Originally from New York City, Dumpster has found himself setting up in Austin, Texas for the last few years. He mainly works in broadcast television, advertising, and film. His most recent release is out now via Valley View Records and is called Summer Falls. So definitely check that out if you like the interview, and also if you like, slow moving ambient style tunes and vibes. Anyway, I'm going to add TJ slash SixMissing into the chat and we'll get started on the conversation. But check out the new skin. Hang on. Look, okay, it's just me right now, but oh, why is mine? There we go. That's better. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am quite well. How are you?
I said I was going to retire that because it's so embarrassing to ask and you just get the same answer.
I was just going to say that. You said that in the last episode, right?
Yeah, what? Okay, are you hot or cold right now?
I'm both. My room is really hot and outside is cool. It's like nice. Yeah.
So
It's not
like the
bad.
confusing body temperature.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're just like constantly in a state of sort of sweating.
Oh, good. Just like a little bit damp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Totally.
I thought I thought Texas was always hot.
Yeah. It's just varying degrees of hot and then less hot and then sweltering hot, I think. So we're in the less hot season right now, which is very weird coming from New York, being like, I haven't put on a coat or a winter coat in a few years, and it's really strange and it throws me wildly.
Right? I bet that's so interesting. Like New York has the same temperature as Toronto, so you're like, oh yeah, used to the winter. It's snowing, it's blustery, it's freezing. Plus, all of New York is a wind tunnel, and then you get to Texas, and it's like, oh, it's just different kinds of hot.
Yes. Yeah. I am really struggling with that quite a bit actually, because I'm a very like, I live my life in seasons and I live like my moods in seasons as well. And so to go from like 4 to 2 or really just like one long one has been such a weird like mental shift.
Yeah. I can't even begin to imagine. I'm the same way. I prefer to live in a country with seasons. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine what people who live in like California do all the time. Like it's just hot all the time. Like how do you structure your life?
Yeah, I feel like the Pacific Northwest for me is like the sweet spot of weather and like gloom and rain and sun and cool. I feel like
Right.
that's maybe just where I should head. I don't know.
So do you need access to like cooler temperatures, gloomy gray days?
Yeah. And I've never been landlocked before in my life. Like I've
Oh,
always been on the coast in New York, or like when I went to school in Florida, coast on both sides and stuff.
oh
So
wow.
access to water has been um, a thing for me.
Do you know how to swim?
Yeah, I like to swim, but
Okay.
I like seeing it. I like just being
Right.
able to like get to it and kind of like I like things that make me feel small, like that it's not all about like the human existence. It's like like, okay, buddy, like get in your place type of stuff. That's why I loved New York so much, like the buildings, and then you go upstate and you have like the mountains and everything just makes you shrink and you're able to
Yeah.
be like, okay, like the stupid problem I was thinking about isn't really that real. But here in Austin, it has been my experience that it's very like human focused, and like the happiness and joy of the person is the most important thing. So I don't know, am I leading on that I'm like maybe not totally happy with where I moved to?
Well, I mean, like moving anywhere is always a bit of a gamble because you're like,
Yeah,
maybe, right? Like,
yeah, that's
no.
why I was so excited to talk to you, because you made I mean, I went from New York to Texas, so I was still within the continental United States, but you picked up and moved like boom around the globe, which I was kind of fascinated to see and read because it came on uh, like not that long after we moved to Texas, and I was like, I haven't met anyone or talked to anyone that's gone through a similar thing of like leaving their home, like
Yeah.
leaving everything behind. And again, take it with a grain of salt that I'm just in Texas and from New York, but
What's the big move?
I was just fascinated to like talk to you about your experience and what that has been like. Because you've been there now like 6 months, a little longer, a little
No,
less.
like 4 months.
4 months. Okay.
August doesn't really count because I was in quarantine.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I did move, but I also moved around a lot when I was a child. So I guess to me, like moving isn't that jarring.
Mm,
I remember moving out of Russia and moving to Canada.
mhm.
I remember like moving multiple times during my childhood to like even different cities and stuff, and like having to start all new schools. So I guess to me, it's not that like alarming where you're like, oh, starting only like obviously the main challenge here would be like the language barrier, which is unavoidable. Like obviously I don't speak Korean, no
Yeah.
matter how much I try. But I mean, I think if you want to move, you can move. I think that's like the main takeaway is that if you want to move, you can move, or you can just take a really long vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think so. I'm a freelancer, and I don't take advantage of being a freelancer enough. Like some other freelancer friends of mine, they like go on road trips for 2 months and they just like take a job here and there and just go see
Yeah,
deserts and oceans and go abroad and are in like Berlin or in Liverpool or
fun.
something like that, which sounds amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that more. I should definitely travel and maybe not like move to your favorite vacation spot, which Austin wasn't, by the way, but it was just one of those places that we had wanted to try out. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, so veered off topic a little bit there.
I mean, like, I get it because I think I always like been jealous of Americans because like if I lived in the states, I would change states like every 2 years,
Mm,
because there's so much variety and it's so cheap to travel in America and it's so small, compared to Canada,
mhm.
and like unlike Canada, and I've talked about this in so many other episodes, and this is why I think it's better to be a DIY musician in the states than it is in Canada is because domestic travel is cheaper and easier in America, and there's also so many more scenes in different pockets of the country. Like in Canada, it's like Toronto, okay, Montreal, yeah. Maybe depending on the music, there's like some little towns between them, right? The prairies, just a general question mark, maybe. Like I know there's great DIY and punk scenes there, but if you're not making punk music or rock music and stuff, there isn't always a place to perform basically anywhere between Toronto and Vancouver. Right. And even if you do manage to build a tour, like again, like it's the domestic travel that becomes very, very expensive. So you're either taking the bus, which takes forever, like driving from Toronto to Winnipeg, which is the next major city in the next province, Manitoba. From what I understand, it's a 24-hour drive. And that's only if you cut through the states and go under. Like if you cut through Michigan, going the other way. So like you can see how that can be like taxing, especially if you're in a band, right? Like you're in a band, you have to pay for all this gas, you're taking these colossal road trips that like if I'm driving from, you know, Columbus to Detroit, it's not taking that long. And I have to pay for food. Sometimes the gas stations are like 100 kilometers apart once you get into the more rural areas. You have to pay to eat. So you have to eat multiple times, and you're not getting paid every single night to play because sometimes you're on the road for 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. And in my experience, when I was touring, even just a domestic tour going from New York to Florida and back is like, that was enough. And we broke up. Like the band completely broke up. That was like,
really? Did you like hate each other by the end of it? Or did you realize you just couldn't vibe like that?
It was just like an unspoken thing. I think we all just kind of were like, okay, we did that. And maybe that's all.
Sucks.
Yeah, maybe that's all we were meant to do. So I can only imagine 24 hours, like just to the next place, doesn't sound all that appealing or fun to me. And that, I mean, that's, I've found myself as a solo musician and composer for the last like 6 years, kind of for that reason, is like, it's just, it's challenging being in a band. And like, oh, we were talking about like how timely it is for this chat to be happening with the Spotify Wrapped, but also the Beatles Get Back documentary was incredible. And I don't know if you're a fan of the Beatles or if you've seen it or not, but highly recommend it. And it was just like so amazing seeing the iconic Beatles having kind of like the same problems and the same struggles and the same issues in a band that I've had in like middle school bands, high school bands, college bands, all through the whole thing. So yeah, being a solo musician makes it easier. Also traveling is so much easier as well. You're just like one person in the car, and depending on what your gear is like, if it's a, you know, Ableton setup or if you have pedals or something like that, it becomes really simple.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I agree with that as on like as a base statement, because I definitely prefer solo traveling to traveling with other people, because I would say that I operate on a very different schedule than a lot of people. Like I wake up early and I walk really fast. And
so you're a New Yorker at heart, really.
Right? I feel like I should end up there one day. It was like always my fantasy. Like, New York. And like, you know, in Canadians, we get 6 months tourist visa. So maybe one day I'll just go and hang out for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's like so expensive though. More expensive than Toronto. So I had to leave North America. I was like, oh, I can't afford it anymore. Bye.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, what was my question? I had a question that we got off topic. Oh, I remember. So you moved, right? You moved, and now it's sunny all the time. It's like hot. I assume things are quite large in Texas. I don't know. Do you have a car now? Did you always have a car? Did you have a car in New York?
I had a car in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not like the first 6 years I lived. So I'm from 30 minutes north of Manhattan. So I lived in the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs. Then I moved down to the city and I spent like 6-7 years there. And the first few years that I lived there, I didn't bring my car because it was just not needed, not necessary. And it was just a pain in the ass to do like alternate side of the street parking, which doesn't make any sense. But so, yeah, we shipped the car down on like a truck from New York to Austin because we have a cat. So we flew with the cat, which was a whole ordeal.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think it was probably more stressful for us than her. She was great on the plane, but I speak about her like a child. Yeah, I mean, driving places. So, truth be told, when you asked me on, I was like, this is going to be fun. But since moving here, like my listening to music time has gone way down, like to a scary level. Because in New York, I would leave my apartment, I would throw my headphones in and I would just walk. Then I'd wait for the train. I'd be on the train. Then I'd get out. I'd walk again. And then I have
Yeah,
to do the
and
whole
now you're
thing.
driving.
And now we're driving and like my wife and I we'll just put music on in the car just as background music a little bit, and oftentimes we're just chatting. So like all the time that I would spend listening has kind of evaporated, and then by the nature of what I do for work,
Yeah,
my ears are shot by the end of the day, just like mixing
right.
a whole bunch of different pieces, whether it's TV or film or ads or something like that. My ears are just tired. So it's not like I want to just like leap right into listening to something. And so a really interesting thing that has happened is like my time listening to music has gone way down, but my time creating music has gone up like tenfold.
I
So
mean,
I've
that's good. Maybe. I don't know. My question was that, like, do you differentiate between the music you would listen to while driving and the music that you would listen to while walking or
mm,
just chilling or like actively listening?
mhm.
And I guess you already answered that because your driving music is just background music. And I'm assuming just like radio, right?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like it's I don't really listen to the type of music that I make. Like
Right.
if I were to choose to listen to something, I wouldn't like grab for ambient music really. It's more therapeutic and meditative for me to create it. And
Hmm.
when I listen to something like that, it's intentional and it's usually like one of the older artists of ambient, like Harold Budd or Brian Eno or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but when I'm listening just for fun, it's like funny. I mean, I listen to Dua Lipa and like I'll put on just like shiny pop, just like stuff that has like high production quality, um, vocal driven stuff, harmony stuff, like anything that has like ear candy, just stuff that's like in there that like,
It's just
you
like
know,
good pop.
yeah,
And
yeah.
listen
And
to some
like,
K-pop, man. That stuff never leaves.
what's that?
You should listen to some K-pop. Like that stuff burrows in your soul and never leaves.
I'm afraid of what would happen if I did dive into the world of
It's
K-pop.
good. I've been trying to listen to like some of the other stuff that's popular here, like not just BTS or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I've been learning. Like I wouldn't say I'm like a crazy K-pop fan. I like it. I don't know most of the band's names,
Mhm.
and if I like the band, I don't really know the artist names.
Mm.
Um, right? Like I'm not as invested in it as like some people are.
Yeah.
But I
It's like a whole
sometimes,
thing, right? It's like
oh
a
yeah, it's like a
lifestyle.
lifestyle for people.
Yeah.
So I'm in like some Korea group. This is like off topic, but I'm in some Korea like expat groups or whatever, where people like sell stuff,
Mhm.
and sometimes people sell their like K-pop merch because they're moving out of Korea or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's so much stuff,
They're just trying to like
and
offload.
like it's always the strangest merch to me. Like, okay, and this I would love to talk about this with you because like I don't know when I was a child, when I was a teenager and I was into merch, right?
Mm.
Most of what I wanted was like a t-shirt and a poster, right? That
Totally.
would be like the extent of what I would want from the band.
Mhm.
Now, like with K-pop merch specifically, there's like 7 different versions of the physical CD,
Mm.
and there's photo cards, which from what I understand are literally just little cardboard pictures of each of the members with
Uh-huh.
like maybe a fact or something. And then I think if you put them together in the back, it makes a larger picture. But the photo cards is like quite a popular thing in K-pop. I'm not sure I fully understand it, to be honest. So like if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. But
Just like what
I
shit is popping off.
but it's a lot of like random merch, and I think even like with BTS specifically, they not only have like the BTS merch, but they have like a cartoon version of BTS merch called like Line Friends or something,
Mm. So
where
it's like
people buy
a
the merch related to that stuff. And I watched a girl on TikTok, and she bought like a toaster, just like weird stuff that you wouldn't think was merch, but is like day-to-day activity stuff. And you're like, oh, that's so weird. And I don't know, I guess to me, I'm like, this seems so foreign. Like I can't imagine wanting to like live my life and wanting like living my life, right? And then wanting to buy like, I'll use the band that I'm like a super fan of. Like I wouldn't want to buy a Fall Out Boy or a My Chemical Romance like pair of glasses or like branded sneakers.
Sure. I don't think there is anything, not even like outside of music. I don't think there's anything that well, okay. When I was a kid, maybe like if I got really into a movie or if I got really into uh, an album or something like that, yes, I would obsess about it.
Yeah.
But now I don't think there's anything that I could get that excited about. Period. Just like if it's
You're like,
great
I
music,
don't care
that's
anymore.
yeah, like if it's great music, that's awesome. My favorite band are the Beatles, and so even just watching the 3-part documentary series being 8 hours long, I was like, great, I could
You were
watch
like,
another.
that's enough, right?
What's that?
You were like, that's enough. That's enough of what I need. I don't need anything else.
No, actually,
Right?
I could sit and probably watch like another 20 hours of that, but I'm not going to go out and buy like Beatles postcards or like Beatles self tattoo stickers or something like that. I just there's
Yeah.
nothing that I could really see myself going after. I'm much more like about the vinyl or like the
Yeah.
physical. um, if there's something that I really, really like, I'll go searching for it. Like if it's an older album, if it's a new one, I'll wait for it. Because streaming is great, and having the power of like over 1 billion pieces of music from the history of recorded music in the palm of your hand is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Um, but if it's a band that I really like and love and respect what they're doing, I'll go to the Bandcamp. I'll go download the album, even if I have it on a Spotify playlist. I'll buy the vinyl, like, and I'll listen to it. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I know that like those types of things take so much care and time and effort. And also, we all tend to have other jobs and lives outside of the music that we create. So like having your passion project be your music, I want people to support mine. So I also want to support the ones that I find that are doing something really special. So merch, no posters, but yes, vinyl, I guess would be
Yeah.
the
So is
answer to that.
vinyl like, I guess I don't know. Maybe I have like a different view on this. I view vinyl and like cassettes, CD, whatever, as like part of the music. Like to me, that's almost
Mm,
not merch.
mm,
Merch to me is like wearables, lanyards, just like like sometimes like lighters. Like that's the most like now that I'm a grown up and I don't buy random stuff anymore. The most I'll
right.
buy from a band, and it almost always is like my friend's band.
Uh-huh.
Buy merch from. It'll be like a T-shirt that I'm never gonna wear,
Right.
um, but I'm buying because I want to support my friend. Or one thing of merch that I really really like is lighters. Well, I mean
Mm,
I used to smoke,
right.
so that was always a good thing because you'd buy the lighter and you'd be like, ah, my buddy, right? But and
Right.
lighters are cheap to make and therefore cheap to buy, so it's like a
Mhm.
cute little um thing. But I don't know, like I think it's one thing to remember about like the BTS and K-pop merch. Even though there's like a colossal abundance of it and we view it as like very strange, it's important to remember that it is like for children.
Mhm.
um and so kids, and if I think back to myself at like that age, yeah, I probably wouldn't have bought like a Fall Out Boy or My Chemical Romance toaster or photo cards, but I was trying to buy like multiple t-shirts
Mhm.
and like other similar things like that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting how big merch is and how merch has even bled into things like I mean, look at Taylor Swift, right? When she released
Uh-huh.
it was not her best work, but the merch she did for it was her best merch because she made like snake rings and all sorts of stuff. and it really fit in with the theme. And I think what she did, what was smart, was that she made merch that didn't look like it was Taylor Swift merch. It just looked like regular clothes and jewelry.
So then at what point do you cross over from being a band selling merch to just a electronics company or a clothing company, or
Like just
and
the
maybe
brand.
yeah, or just a brand, really? Because now that you were bringing that up, I guess there would be like, I think it would be a great idea if a band was like, we're going to make refrigerators, and like we're going to make the best refrigerator. And because that's the type of thing now, as like a 34-year-old, that I'm like, okay, yeah, like our fridge is going, like maybe we should look for a fridge. And like, what kind of fridge
Mattress,
would
let's
I?
get a new mattress.
Yeah, or like a mattress, exactly, like a non-toxic, vegan, latex mattress. So like,
They're making water beds. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like there aren't any bands doing that, and maybe there's a good reason, but also maybe there's not a good reason, and you'll have to excuse me. I'm going to put this in my note tab to look at this.
you're like, I'm gonna start my. You know what though? I don't think some bands do start making random stuff, and I think that is hilarious. Like that guy from Blink 182
Mm-hmm.
now has that like alien group, right?
Oh,
Does
like
he?
uh, is it the bass player or something, or the
Yeah.
guitarist? I forget. There's only three of them, so I had a
There's only
one
three
and
of them. Oh,
third
it's
shot.
Tom DeLonge, and now he's a UFO researcher, and now he has like UFO
Oh,
related
there you go. Nice.
activities. And I guess like that's not really merch, but it's like a side activity. But I think that
Mhm.
only kind of works if you're like you've already reached the success with your artistry, and now you can do random stuff, and people are like, oh, okay, well that makes sense.
Right.
like like if
Right.
my cam started making mattresses, or like they started were like, hey, this is our line of like vegan yogurts or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, like, do you? I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll try it. I don't know.
There was a comedian, or there is a comedian, that he put out a uh, live album of his set, and he had different levels of like different tiers of things that you could buy, and the top tier was like an armchair, and like he was just selling like furniture. I was like, this is brilliant, because he's either A, like moving and wants to get rid of some stuff.
He's selling his old furniture.
Right. And or B, like he's a marketing genius, and way to go. Um but yeah, there's not like a single piece of merch I think I've purchased outside of, which I, now that you made that distinction, I actually do agree with you. Outside of the music, I haven't bought anything, nor could I think of anything that I could really like
Like
want to
me,
do. Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. Well,
I
so
also, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, I also even stopped buying vinyl a while ago because once I found out I was moving, I was like, okay, I have to stop buying this shit.
Hmm.
So I sold a lot of my vinyl, and I've always been a sucker for like a white label,
Mm,
or any like limited edition, like color repress. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like take my $50, right?
yeah. Well,
But
and you
now
would,
even that I don't even want it. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want it. Like I'm gonna hear it on Spotify. Sorry, but like I'm going to, and
right.
and that's what I'm gonna use. I mean, I agree with you. If it is a band I really like, if it's like an indie artist, I'll absolutely go on the Bandcamp. And because I DJ, I do have to buy the music. But for my own casual listening, only as a consumer, only as a fan, I'm 100% using Spotify or YouTube for everything. Everything.
Right. Well, I was going to say, so as a DJ, did you do like a lot of like crate digging for like samples of things that like you had never heard, or you haven't heard anybody else get? Like, was that a part of the hunt for you?
Yeah,
Mhm.
online, right? Like you would spend a lot of
Okay.
time on like hours and hours on Bandcamp and YouTube, like going into different holes. And I would
Mhm.
even say that like the Spotify, like I would do some digging on there, just like clicking random stuff, typing in random stuff because their search function is better than the Bandcamp one.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would just be looking through there. The Spotify playlists are good. So like I'll look through the playlist and I'll find an artist or a song that I like, and I'll go through all the related stuff and go through the levels.
Hmm.
Somebody who's listening to this artist, what else are they listening to?
Hmm.
Right? I think it's about following the users.
Hmm.
Like my favorite feature on Bandcamp is that you can follow like other fans, other like consumers, and you'll get an update whenever they bought something new,
Hmm.
and you can go and see what it is, and then from there you can see who else bought it. Like I would say that the Spotify like user function for somebody who's actively looking for music is really really good,
Hmm.
because it allows you a lot of different avenues to find similar stuff. But their search function is still not so good. Like if I type in like deep house, I still have to like jump through a couple more hoops to actually get that stuff.
Yeah. So the way, I mean, for me, well, first of all, talking about vinyl and New York, you would love this place. There's this place called The Thing. It's a secondhand, like vintage store on the top, like the street level. So you walk in off the street and it's just like
Yeah,
really weird stuff.
the
Like the
thing.
shelves are kind of like half empty. I hope they survived the pandemic. I haven't checked in on them. But the shelves on the top floor are like half empty. There's like old dolls and some
Nice.
clothing, magazines, that type of stuff. And then there's like some records on the top floor. But then you go down this tiny little corridor, and if you Google photo it, I'm sure somebody's put it up. Tiny corridor, and then like literal like raw earth type of basement. It's the entire size of the store, and it's just floor to ceiling, stacked, just wall to wall vinyl, and there's no organization, there is no categorization. It's just like sometimes just the actual like white label stuff, or like just no name, or you'll buy a record and you'll take the record out and you'll be like, this isn't that record at all, but it's like it
Well,
was
you get what you get.
yeah, absolutely. And it's so much fun to just go there and be like, I have $20. Let's see what we can find.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. I used to go to the dollar bins a lot when I was still buying records. You could just go and spend like 10, $15 and then go home and
mhm.
listen to them. It's like a little roulette.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I always like traveling to the States too, though. Like when I was in Detroit last year,
Mhm.
I went to Palomina Sound. It's like a little record shop in Detroit downtown.
Okay.
And I was so surprised by how cheap the vinyl was that I bought a bunch. They were like $5 each. I bought like, probably like 6 or 7 records, maybe more,
Mm.
just based on like images alone,
Yeah.
because they were so cheap that you could do that and then go home and listen to them, and it was so fun. So I do miss playing like record roulette in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like
I
random stuff. You never know what you're gonna get, right? Especially from the dollar bin.
no, and that's the like fun of it too. And if you go to the same kind of spots enough, you get to like know, oh, this looks new. Oh, they must have gotten like a batch of new stuff. Okay, I've already seen this, and
Yeah.
go. But yeah, I mean, behind me here is all records, and over there too. I same thing. Like that's been my biggest pain point when we've moved either apartments or down here. It's like the vinyl is the first thing I pack, and it's
Yeah.
the first thing I unpack. And it's like even now, it's getting to the point where I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna stop buying records unless it is something that I really do want to hear on vinyl, or they've done something really unique with the experience of the whole thing. But other
Yeah.
than that, I've gotta
Slow
cool it.
level.
They're
Yeah,
so heavy. They're so heavy.
they're so heavy. With vinyl, it's really easy too to just buy it and then never open it. Like
Mhm.
I have a few records at home that I bought because I was like, oh yeah, and then
Mm.
I just never listened to it.
But they're there.
But they're there, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm like, why the hell do I have this? Like,
Yeah. Because it was I mean, it's always been for me, it's always been like just the fun thing that I do, and that is purely for myself. Like
yeah, there was
I
a lot of joy
can
there for sure.
yeah, and I don't like going to record stores with other people because I feel self-conscious and like they're going to get
Mm.
bored and now I've got to hurry myself. Um so I like going by myself, and yeah, the I miss doing that in the city because I could just throw like my messenger bag on and go walk and come home with a stack and then just
Now you have to drive.
now I drive, and what am I going to listen to while I drive? It's a lot of
You're gonna
silence.
listen to your Spotify Wrapped.
Yeah, which is funny because I posted, I guess our Google Home is attached to my Spotify account. So when my wife works out, it's like Drake and stuff. So that's made its way into my top Spotify Wrapped, but uh, not necessarily indicative of what I've been listening to as of late. But have you heard the new John Hopkins? Do you get into that?
Um,
His departure from like electronic and more into the
I
spiritual
have
meditative?
not. I have not heard of this, and I have not been following that. I'll be honest. My what I've been listening to recently is very embarrassing, because I've been feeling like very like insecure about my career and stuff. So
Mm.
I've been listening to a lot of comfort music, which if I'm opening my Spotify right now, what I was listening to before I turned it off last night was like a 2007 Miley Cyrus album.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um,
Oh, I
yeah,
saw
which
you
it's
storied
good.
that.
It's a
Yeah.
good record.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly a lot, and then some like instrumental electronic stuff, but mostly like my one of my go-tos is like this duo Sleep D from Australia.
Never heard of
They
them.
make really good like hypnotic style like housey electronic stuff, and I just
Mm.
put it on when I'm trying to zone out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
anyway, to answer your question, no.
I mean that's to get super cliche and super cheesy. That is the beautiful thing about music is like you can just throw something on and be instantly transported back to where you were when you either first heard it or like made an impression on you. I mean, I do the exact same thing, and like I'll listen to like a lot of like I have Tears for Fears on here, and yeah,
Nice.
Taylor Swift, some
Yeah.
Weezer, War on Drugs, and then just like a ton of soul music,
Yeah.
like anything that just has like something that it's just real, like something real that makes you move and
Yeah. And like feels
takes.
good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's kind of why like I don't actively throw on like ambient music because it's kind of like
Yeah.
working at an ice cream shop all day and then coming home and eating ice cream. It's not necessarily the thing you want to do right
Yeah.
away.
It's funny because I remember back when the show was still on Instagram, I talked to Black Moth, who's an amazing
Yeah.
soundscape producer, and he actually said something very similar to you,
Hmm.
which I also agree with. I think when you make things that can be classified as experimental, you're not usually A, listening to your own music after it's done,
Totally.
or B, listening to music that is like or similar to your music. Sometimes, right? Sometimes you have to
Hmm.
have wanted to make it for a reason, right?
Hmm.
And the reason is that you heard it before and you liked it and you wanted to do something similar. It moved you, right?
Hmm.
But for the most part, like you're not listening. I'm not sitting at home listening to fucking experimental like noise compilations all the time. Okay, that'd be insanity,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and just like you can't be listening to ambient all the time. Like sometimes you want music that has structure, and yes, there's a lot of beauty in like ambient and structureless and freeform experimental stuff.
Hmm.
But sometimes you just want something that you can, like you said, move to.
Hmm.
And I think it's very funny that a lot of the experimental weirder artists that I talk to have similar beliefs. They're just like, yeah, like I just make it. I don't even know what it sounds like when it's done.
That's part of the art, I think, is like the expression of it, not the listening back of it. Before I got more into the ambient soundtrack, like film composition style instrumental music, I was doing more like improvised freeform jazz, like psychedelic jam
Oh
sessions.
wow, free jazz.
Yeah, so like my whole thing was to pull musicians that I knew and friends and stuff and book a show and just
Yeah.
never rehearse, never get together until we're there. I mean, the last one I did in New York, my friend and I hadn't seen each other in like 6 months. We were supposed to get together to like run a few ideas, and snow kept him from coming. I was like, it's fine. Let's just show up. We have a
Good.
sold out room that people paid money to come see, but let's just like make this up. Um, and that I think is like the art of it. And I think I read something maybe that you wrote that was similar, but it's like for me it's like ice sculptures. It's like you're spending the time watching the artist make it, and that is part of the enjoyment of it, and then it's gone. And like just be here with it while it's happening, and
Yeah.
then that's it. So before I got into the ambient stuff, that was what I was doing, and I was just like, make it, put it out, never listen to it. Like the first few albums that I have out on uh online, I don't listen to at all. And I'm like, in fact, I'm kind of like afraid to go back to them to listen to them to be like, "Ugh,"
Maybe I'll
or
do that.
yeah. But but yeah, I totally get that. And yeah, I follow Black Moth, and his
Yeah,
stuff is
he's
insane. And like
amazing.
it's amazing. And so actually on that note, that's like something I've been talking to a handful of people about, especially with this Spotify year-end wrap thing. Folks that have like really big Instagram followings, like, you know, in the thousands, all the way up to like the multiple tens of thousands, like 25, 30,000. And we've been chatting, and they're like, how did your last record get so many listens? And I was like, well, it was through a label and they have a big audience and all this. And I was like, well, how is your record doing? And they're like, it's not. And I'm like, but you have so many people. And it's like, yes, but they're all musicians. They're all creators that are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
And like nobody that does that really takes the time or has the time to sit and really listen. Even if like I love you as a person and as a musician, I'm not going to use like the free 15 minutes, 30 minutes I have to sit down and listen to your like 19-minute noise jam, you know?
yeah.
And
Actually, that's really cool that you brought this. Oh, sorry, keep going. I'll talk about my thing later.
oh no, I was just gonna say it. As I'm saying it, I realize like I sound like a little bit of a dick for saying that, because like I do want people to listen to mine, but like there is a distinction between, and I think that's like the vanity plate that Instagram has like gotten into our brains, is like followers equal success, and it's not at all that.
Totally.
And even with streams don't equal success, because like you're not making all that much money off of it, and if you think you're going to, like, it's a losing battle, like get out now. But I think it's more about finding like not necessarily fans, but people that like appreciate your music and want to follow along with your journey. And yeah, I'll get down off the soapbox. You can totally say what you're going to say.
Oh no, I mean I was gonna say, like, I think it's interesting that you brought this up. There's a guy in Toronto, Tremaine. So shout out Tremaine and Stay Out Late crew, in Toronto. But he posted something recently that was like, oh, the reason you're like shit is not going well is because you're like literally just posting on Instagram and marketing to musicians. Which I'm like, yeah, you guys, like, you are out here posting your new album, trying to impress another musician who doesn't care, right? And I think, and like I had sent him a voice note responding to this. So basically, a couple years ago before COVID, I was hanging out with one of my friends in the techno scene, and he's saying, he was like, I think the biggest problem in our Toronto techno scene is that we try so hard to get other DJs to come to our events. And we're looking in, right, within our own scene. We're not looking outward and trying to get more other people introduced to that music. Right. We're not showing different people who are maybe not into house or techno how fun and beautiful and community building house and techno can be. Mm-hmm. It's always the same people at every single show, and if they're not there, then you feel bad or you try to make them come. Like, you're always inviting the same people every time. You're releasing music and posting on Instagram, and the same people are seeing it every time. And if they didn't care the first time, they're not going to care the second time.
Right.
And I think,
like,
and I think that
tale as old as time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but I mean, in every band I can ever remember being in, that has always been a challenge, is like, how do you find the fans? How do you not just have your friends and your girlfriends and their friends and your family show up to your shows? And that's always the challenge. And I think Instagram has become such, I mean, a very positive thing, because you get to meet people that you wouldn't necessarily meet in real life, as I did you and many other really nice people and talented people. But it's also like a super toxic piece of shit that makes you think that you're like actively doing something positive for your music career by just like storying something. And like, there's a whole big world out there. Like, there are record stores. There are, I don't use Facebook, but there are, I'm sure, Facebook groups. There are like actual shows happening. I mean, like, I remember we used to make flyers and like go out and hand them out to like people to get them to come. Like you actually have to like do something other than 50% of the time, probably people are sitting on the toilet posting anyways. So like, you know, you got to do something more than that if you want it to go somewhere. And Instagram gives you this false sense of like forward motion because you've gained a few followers or something like that. And I don't know what the answer is.
Your followers don't care. You could have so many followers, and literally only like 10% of those followers are even seeing your stuff.
Right. That's probably generous.
Okay, yeah, probably closer to like 5%. Like nobody cares. Nobody cares. And you have to make them care. You have to make the people that don't already follow you care. If the people who already follow you, like they already follow you. They already know what you're about. They already have engaged with your work or want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they follow you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people forget that, and then they limit their marketing efforts as musicians, whatever genre you're in, doesn't matter what it is. You limit that only to Instagram. You're not trying to get like PR for like, other publications. You're not trying to get on Spotify playlists. You're not posting on other social medias, whatever. You're not taking out ads to try to reach out different audiences, and you're really, really limiting yourself. And then you sit there and you're like, oh, why does my album not reaching success? And it's because you're not putting in the effort to reach those different people, right? And if you do take out ads, it amazes me what I see. I'll see people that I already follow taking out ads that I'm seeing. I'm like, why am I seeing your ad? Why am I seeing your ad? I already follow you.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be seeing your ad.
I've done that, and I will totally cop to that. I've done the sponsored post. I've done
they work, but you have to like actually, like, I worked in marketing, so I have a background, so I'm obviously like biased, but they absolutely work. You just have to.
But of course they work, because you're paying somebody. You're buying in now. You're just like sending.
Well, that's how advertising works. So like when you buy a newspaper ad, you're paying for that too, right?
Right.
or like
That's true.
the commercial spot.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, I don't know. This is definitely a larger conversation, because the Instagram algorithm, whatever you would like to call it, and also the Spotify algorithm, like it rewards your activity and your engagement. So when you're not engaging and you're not posting, and I know that, all of my musician friends have talked about this. I've seen you talk about it too, where it's like, you need time, like, holy shit, like you need time to like stop and figure out what you want your voice to be and what you're trying to say and like what you want your next thing to be. But we live in this time, in this world where it's like, you got to keep moving. Come on, keep giving stuff, keep putting stuff out there. People are gonna, the thing that kills me and is like when someone will post something where it's like, hey, I haven't been here for 2 weeks, sorry. It's like, don't say sorry. Like, good, I'm glad. I'm so happy that you got off this thing to like take some time for yourself, or to be outside, or to write some music. And I'm really torn on social media. And I know before we hopped on here, we were talking a little bit about the social dilemma and all that. But like, it's funny, the more musicians I talk to, no matter who they are, where they are, how old they are, it is like this whole thing where it's like, I don't know how to get rid of the social media, but I also don't know how to like totally manage it in my life.
Yeah.
Which, being someone that has, dealt with addictions in his life, like that's a pretty big warning sign that it needs to change,
Yeah, I totally hear you. Like there's the pressure to be online, and then once you're online, there's like the pressure to continue doing stuff on it. Like it's like post every day and post this kind of content, and it's always focusing on content and not so much about art. And then my friend Ben, big ups Pale Eyes Music, once said, he said, if you make art, you have to actually, you would like his music. It's really quite good.
Okay.
I'll send it to you after.
Please.
But he once posted something, and I still think about it. He said, when you make art, you have to make a little bit of content. Because he was promoting his recent album. And I was like, damn, like you're right. Like you're always like, oh, I don't want to make content. Like what a gross word. Like, are we not all content creators by default? And then, but it's true. Like you can't just make an album and expect it to do well. You do have to make the content to promote it. And then that's where you're like trying to walk this line of like, well, how much do I spend on social media? How much time do I spend on there? Is it worth it for me? Like, what is this doing to me mentally?
Yeah.
Like I love the internet and I love social media, but even I recognize that like you do need a break from it, and you need boundaries within it, especially once you start to get more followers, because people like try to get involved in your shit, and people start to put their own expectations onto you. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be somebody with like 50,000, 100,000, 1 million followers,
Yeah, I would imagine it does something to you. I don't know what. I hope not to find out. honestly. But
Yeah, that just didn't seem like fun for me.
yeah, I'm sure it does something to you, and I'm sure it gives you a sense of, being above or better than other people, which
Yeah.
is that's the gross part, I guess, of that. Yeah, but please send me his music. I agree. I mean, I'm not saying like you can only make an album and expect everybody to find it just by putting it out there, but that's also like it's never been that way. I mean, musicians had to go out on tour and go multi cities or multi countries, or to loop it back around to the Beatles again. I mean, watching their other documentary, the 8 Days a Night one, the Ron Howard one, how much they
Yeah.
toured. I mean, they did like 352 shows in a year, and that's like no
That's
downtime. And they also released like 2 to 3 records within that year. And oh,
crazy.
by the way, anybody in the entire world has heard these songs, and it's just completely mind-blowing. But like, it's about the work. You got to put in actual work to see the result there.
Yeah, you have to work, right? And people, I'll be honest, like, and I think I talked about this in the last podcast I did with creative people or whatever, but people don't want to work anymore, right?
mm,
And I think that people get tired. And like, I was gonna post something about this recently. Like, I know you don't want to do it. I know you don't want to do it. Like, it sucks, right? Like, I don't want to wake up and fucking do this stuff. I don't want to
mhm.
wake up and do yoga every day. I'm tired. My back hurts. I'm old. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to post on social media and like think of new things to do. There, like Anthony Bourdain has this quote. There's a guy inside of me that all he wants to do is sit on the couch and watch TV all day. Me too, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a guy in me that wants to do that all fucking day, but you can't. You have to do the work, and you have to fight through that. I don't want to. You have to be willing to like get your hands bloody and dirty for your dream, because if you really want it, it's gonna be worth it, right? Like, even if it's tiring, it's gonna be worth it. And I think that a lot of people just don't want to do the work because it's tiring and it's long, or they think that like their followers will do it for them. And I think that's like the other kind of like side effect of like Instagram fame or whatever, is that like you think you can do very little and have the weight of social media carry you
Yeah.
through it, which, like, regardless of what you have on the internet, I think work still needs to be done. Like, you can't just have followers and expect them to blindly listen and buy.
Hmm.
You still have to interact with them. They're
Totally.
still people.
Totally. And and please cut me off if we're reaching the end here, but I think I can definitely feel the difference between I like what I do for my job, and I also
Yeah.
like making music, but I get tired at the end of the day of work, and I'm tired because it's work. But if I were to then pick up at 6:01 and move over into music creating world and go until like 4 a.m., I would be tired, but I wouldn't be exhausted. It
Yeah.
doesn't drain me in the same way that doing something that doesn't totally light me up,
Or
you
like
know.
fulfill you.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I don't know. I totally agree with you. I think everybody just kind of expects like I can change my bio line on my socials and now I just do this. And hey, everybody, like, go purchase it or download it or listen to it or sign up for and all this. And it's all just going to magically happen without you like actually putting in some work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that's what it is. I think people forget, like, yeah, it's your passion, and yeah, it's creative and art, but art can be work too, right? You don't just wake up and you're like, I'm going to get some art today, and it just doesn't appear. There's work involved.
Mm.
And like, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to view it, in addition to making the art, if you want to make a career out of it, there has to be marketing involved as well. And the marketing is what the work is.
Mhm.
Some people just want to do it as a hobby and leave it alone, and that's fine.
Mhm.
Right. And that's, you can do that as well. And there's no problem with that. But I
Mhm.
think for the ones that do want to make it like a career, that's where the work starts. Because, a hobby is a hobby. Like, we all have hobbies that we just do random stuff. But I think there's also something to be said about being like allowing yourself to be like shitty at something, just like doing things just for the fun of it. Like, oh, I'm not so good at like painting. I'm just gonna do it for fun.
Yeah.
Just for like
My
a
I totally agree. with where you're going with that. My wife has said, or she read it somewhere, where she's like, no one has just hobbies anymore, and like everybody's trying to take their hobby and
And
make it
monetize
into
it.
a side hustle or your freelance gig or something like that. And I totally agree with you. And that quote is like, just do something for fun, like do
Yeah,
it for you. And
just do it. Just have a good time.
yeah, being bad at something is so like wonderfully,
Liberating.
yeah, so freeing. It is. It's so freeing. That's why like I never read a manual, like ever. Just turn it on
Oh
and be
yeah.
bad. Be bad at it. Let
I
it
don't read a
happen.
manual either. Well, I had to read one recently because I got a new like heating system here, and then I was like, it's in Korean. So
And how did that go?
well, I translated some of the pages, but I
Okay.
still like the translator app is not good.
Mm,
It's not that good, rather, and also like like language differences make it very hard to translate things like from Korean to English, just because of like sentence structure,
right.
different words. Like you'll get the general gist, but it is not what the sentence says. Like
Mm,
you'll be like, okay, maybe,
mm,
but I just needed to know which button meant what.
right.
So in the end, I managed to figure that out, I think.
Are you picking up some Korean?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm trying to. I hang out with my like Korean friends, and then I'm like, teach me some stuff, but they only teach me slang, and I'm like, not fucking helpful.
Not
Um,
helpful.
but I did have a very good encounter at the store recently, which was entirely in Korean. I was very proud of myself. I was like, "Do
Oh,
you
wow.
have this?" And they were like, "Yes," in the corner, and I was like, "Okay, thank you." And then I was like, "Can I have a bag?" Like when I went to check out, because in Korea you have to pay for the plastic bags because you can only put your garbage in specific bags because
Mm,
it's like a pay what you can pay pickup pay for pickup garbage, whatever. The garbage is a whole thing here. It's a separate
right.
thing. And I was like, yes, I want a bag. And I was like, can I have a bag? And she was like, do you have a points card? And I was like, no. And then I left and I was like, oh my God,
Wow, but you did it
she's
though.
fluent.
For
But
me, it's always like if you're going to a foreign country, you have to say like, "Where's the bathroom?"
where's the bathroom?
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Excuse
Sorry.
me.
How much is that coffee?
Yeah. One more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just need to, and like if you plan to eat out, like a table for two or
Mm,
whatever. Bill,
mm,
please. Just like very basic phrases. It amazes. Sometimes I meet people that have lived here in Korea for like multiple years. Like I'm gonna say more than 5,
mhm,
and they still don't speak Korean. And I'm like, what have you been doing for the last 5 years?
mm.
If not learning Korean.
Not putting in the work.
Not putting in
See,
the work. That's what I mean. I'm like, you can get
ties
by,
on.
but it's just a little lazy on my. I'm like, well, come on, figure it out.
Right.
Um, but I mean, granted, it is a hard language to learn. So if it, like, I do sympathize with that as well. But we are running out of time. I'm sorry to like bring this off topic. I know we wanted to talk about Spotify Wrapped and we didn't get a time. Maybe I'll invite you for part 2 on season 3.
Nice.
Because I
I'm
had
down.
Chillwave Kittens on for a part 2, and that was a good chat. But anyway, any final last words? You have like 20 seconds.
20 seconds left. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was really great, like getting to chat with you off the Instagram platform. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the new record is out. I have a rework coming out with Foam and Sand, Robot Kosh on this coming Friday. Check out. But
Ooh,
thanks,
right.
thanks for having me, and happy holidays to you and to
Oh, thank
all
you so much.
listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Coming up next is Beats by More with live beat making. I literally have 3 seconds left. I'm going to stop the live. Bye. Love you. Thank you.